Buenas noches. ¿Cómo están? Feliz sábado. Thank you all for being here and welcome to the Wanda Coleman Theater. My name is Raúlrsalinas. I'm Progress Manager here at Beyond Baroque. Yeah, let's give it up for our poeta. Who didn't get a program, first of all? Okay, let's pass it down, okay? All right. Like to start by acknowledging our presence on unceded territory. Y también lo pasan para la derecha, por favor. We stand in solidarity with indigenous Tongva, Tataviam, Chumash peoples who've endured colonialism and displacement. We stand against genocide and are committed to provide a space for indigenous artists and communities as they are the original stewards of this land. Beyond Baroque is a place dedicated to the possibilities of language, founded in 1968 by George Drury Smith, began first as an experimental literary magazine and evolved into the interdisciplinary space it is today. We have taken over the original Venice City Hall building. This is 120-year-old building, but it is now a home for artists and writers, and it has been so since the late 70s. You can learn more about LA's oldest literary organization through our website, beyondbaroque.org. We continue to offer free Monday night fiction workshops and our Wednesday night poetry workshops on Zoom. Every week, participants are allowed to develop their individual pieces with a group of participants. I will say a few announcements that we have coming up in the space. On October 11th, which is next Saturday at 4 p.m., we will have an exhibition focused on the portraits of the late Charles Bukowski. That is an exhibition curated by the photographer Joan Gani, who was Bukowski's personal photographer, and we will be debuting never before seen photos of Bukowski, and we'll be having a few programs in tandem with that. For the opening night, we'll be having Mike Sonskin in conversation with Charles Bukowski. Oh, yeah, that'd be great, but you know, you know, yeah, no, it's hologram and ghost and everything. No, but he'll be conversation with Joan Gani. And also we'll be hosting a few open mics and like a Halloween open mic on October 23rd. And we'll be having book launches with poets Mariano Zaro and Ramon Garcia, What Books Press launch, and the book launch of our director, Jamie Vega, who's sitting over here. What Books Press, Zirconium Ash, and we'll be having, can I say the lineup? Or Pragita Sharma, Seshu Foster, among a few others. But yeah, come back to that Halloween and, you know, dress up and stuff. So come ready to party. And we are also having a workshop in partnership with the International Writing Program at the Iowa Writers Workshop with writer Manuel Becerra. This is a workshop for bilingual writers. There's more info on our website, but we need more signups. So if any of you are interested in having a multiple section workshop with Mexico City writer, definitely sign up and hope we don't cancel it. But you know, we need more folks to make that commitment. And thanks to your support, we've been here 57 years, and in spite of the many challenges we are facing, we're still standing strong and hope to be here a whole other century. If you are willing and are generous, we are offering memberships at $75. This gets you into events for free, as well as perks in our bookstore, merch. We are having a fundraiser on November 15th, and we'll be having a full lineup of poets here on the Wanda Coleman Theater, and we'll be activating the space in lieu of what would be the Southern California Poetry Festival. But given all the funding we've lost through you know, the National Endowment of the Arts taking away more than $30,000, we've lost the capacity to build a free weekend of poetry. But we hope to bring it back, and it is more than ever, we're relying on our community to support us. So anything goes a long way, from purchasing a book to donating, connecting us with partner organizations, much like today. So I will be talking a little bit more about that. But huge shout out to our team. That's Eric Alberg in the booth, Jimmy Vega, Genesis Press, Rhiannon, Silos Chavez, Zoe Descuri, Annika Dueñas, and Barbara Fant, who we just added to the team as our Poetry Coalition Fellow. So thank you all for making the ship run. But tonight is a special vote to invoke our ancestor and my poetry, Tio Pocho, that I never had. We share a last name, Salinas, and yeah, I mean, it's beautiful to be in community with you all. Raúl was a poet, a father, kind man. When many institutions used different labels like they do to our gente, to dehumanize them. But Raúl chanted Cuba Libre, Viva Palestina, Viva la Raza, and the fight lives on like his spirit lives. At Beyond Baroque, I've had the privilege of calling back some of our ancestors, especially our literary familia, with Alfred Arteaga back in 2022. We hosted a beautiful event for him. Then Wanda Coleman, who we hosted this beautiful theater after, named this theater after. And now Raúl. And there's so many more to, say presente to our LA literary ancestors. Hopefully we'll have one for Manasar Gamboa, for example. And it's a collective work. It's all thanks to bookmakers and filmmakers, poetas that carry on this warrior spirit. Tonight wouldn't be possible without all the artistas in the room. We have founder of Tia Chuchas and comrade of Raúl, Luis J. Rodriguez. Much like Luis, Raúl also was a journalist. He, put pen to the paper to also document our people's lives. He'll be sharing more in the Flor y Canto, but we also have Iris de Anda, Soledad con Carne, Josiah Luis Alderete, who are writing in Pocho Caló flavor from Maloney to the Tongva lands, all through Califas. And I really want to thank a few people for tonight. That is Soledad, continuing to build bridges, for co-curating in the event. Big shout out to the Global Latinidades Center at UC Santa Barbara, to Ben Valdez Holguin for sponsoring the program, who will also be in conversation with filmmaker Laura. I also thank you, Ben, for your efforts in housing Raúl's archives at the University of Stanford. He gets that recognition, at the academia festival, even when the ladies and the old dudes are making fuchi faces, and like, aunque les duele, ahí mero. But it's all thanks to Laura and Ann Lewis for gathering this footage that we're about to see and sharing Raúl's story. So round of applause for all of them, really. Yeah. The footage you saw, we're showing part of the first Flor y Canto festival in 1973. This footage was made possible by, I learned it's some questionable people, but Michael Sedano, our special guest, can share more about this history. And I wanted to have a big shout out to the compa Abel Salas. I don't know if he's made it to the room. No, he's in Chicano time, so he'll be here soon, But he was instrumental to also gathering the collected writings of Raúl in A Memoria de un Ser Humano, which we have these beautiful copies from Resistencia Press, and they're all, Red Salmon Press, sorry, which is Resistencia Books. And we have them available in the bookstore, but we are probably the only bookstore currently that is carrying copies of this collection, and it's all his writings in prose, documenting his life. And I think that's something very special that Raúl made, which was to write about his life, and that he has control of his narrative. And lastly, all love to a compa in the Oakland Bay Area, which is Arnoldo Colibri. Thank you so much for the connection and for hosting the first screening of Un Trip in Oakland, and we'll probably hear a little bit about it in the Flor y Canto section and from the filmmaker. I will just want to open with two poems we definitely heard from the man himself, but something that I really admire about Raúl is also the flexibility with language, reading in Espanol, in English, and some of his early work is really all in Spanish. At least with this libro I got of A Trip Through the Mind Jail y Otras Excursions, this is a book I found online just by my own curiosity of trying to find Chicano beats. This was 5 years ago, and Raúl came up. And it was just beautiful to see some of this tradition of blues and jazz in poetry and in a Chicano context. And this was at a time when protests were erupting throughout the nation for Black Lives Matter, for demanding our dignity as humans in this earth. And just want to share just two poems, very short, and it's very surprising and just wrapping my head around the fact that Raúl spent 12 years of his life in prison just for smoking mota, just for lighting up one. In fact, there's actually photos of him toking it up with Alurista and a few other poets, and those are by Michael Sedano. So he was in the circle right there. But you'll know what's happening in the Poets Garden afterwards. So this is Poema para mi cell partner. En aquel abismo tan profundo y negro, donde han caído nuestras almas, siempre entra un rayo de luz. Allí donde la humanidad sana nos tiene, como enfermos contagiosos, en vez de aceptar la realidad. ¿O somos nosotros los que nos queremos aceptar? El tratar de derrotar esta inmensa pajarera que contiene aves de distintas variedades, con pura fuerza física, es ahorita un poco imposible. Solo queda una esperanza. Una tarde de invierno los vine a conocer por sus escrituras. Hoy me doy a saber. El águila que nos tiene así, aquí, como pollos mecanizados llenos de dolor, no tiene el poder verdadero de arrestar la mente superior. Un día las alas le cortaron a un pobre pavo real. En su corazón había tristeza por no poder volar. Pero el día glorioso se acerca en que el pavo otra vez irá a volar. Espero que esta ave se escoja el mejor camino para navegar. Se acabó ya la miseria. Órale, pavo, a preparar y pensar en los amores que vas a disfrutar. Quizás haya una llama opaca en el corazón de aquella mujer, quien te ofreció jardín de flores con su amor de anteayer. Al ascender el cielo azul, lejos de este lugar, sabe lo que has cumplido una misión en haber dejado mentes llenas de inspiración. Con esta ya me despido, no más como queriendo decir que también pajarillos presos tienen el derecho de vivir. November 15, 1958, East Wing, Soledad, my first poem. Yeah. Presente. Y una más. Enorme transformación. Hoy me traes enloquecido, rugiendo como un león en jaulas de odio y soledad. Enorme transformación que de un nopal ya casi moribundo has dado fruto a tan ardiente árbol sin cesar. Enorme transformación, hoy me das a conocer que no tan solo yo soy el que sufro, el compañero con su piel oscura, o aquel un poco más pálido que yo, también él sufre si es oprimido bajo explotación. Enorme transformación que me hace comprender que el vietnamita es balaceado, el negro pisoteado y el latino encarcelado. Por eso en estos días empiezo a sentir mi liberación, cual se me está concediendo sobre esta enorme transformación. Leavenworth, noviembre 1971. Yeah, presente. All right. Let's give a round of applause to our special guest, photographer and founding editor of La Bloga, Michael Sedano. Can say a few words about Flor Canto Festival. Yeah, come on.
The video that you saw almost didn't exist. It was made on 4-inch tape by Tom Redden Productions, who was a former LA police chief. And they burned off that 4-inch video onto U-matic cassette tapes. And those tapes, 2 complete sets, were in existence only at Texas A&I in Kingsville and at UCR, where Tomas Rivera was the chancellor. And a young librarian at UCR purchased that whole set. And when I retired from the world of work, I discovered that the tapes existed because somebody sent me a link of Zeta reading at that Flor Canto in 1973, and he had demanded that they turn off the cameras because he wasn't going to do anything for that blankety-blank Tom Red. And so the cameraman walked off, and I thought, wow, my photographs are the only documentation of this wonderful 3-day Flor Canto. And then here it is, 2009, and I see that's Zeta in that shirt in my photos. So the tapes existed. So as soon as I retired, I went to USC to say, hey, do you have those tapes? I want to see them. And they said, no, what tapes? USC had completely lost the institutional memory of the 1973 Flor Canto. So I went over to UCR, and Juan Felipe was working there then. He helped me get a U-matic cassette. That's the old-fashioned player. And I ran it off onto digital video, and that's why those tapes are now existing. And the best thing is they're available for you to go to the USC Digital Library, do a search on Flor y Canto or Raúlrsalinas, and all of those tapes and all of my photographs as well are in the digital library for you. There's no charge for it, and you can download them like you see right here. The audio's pretty good, the video sucks. But what we did was in 2010, then I organized a reunion. As many of the guys from 73 and one woman, 2 women, who that's all who read in 73, brought them in for another 3-day Flor Canto at USC. And that one was filmed by Jesus Trevino, and so it's real high quality stuff. So go on to the USC Digital Library. You can see all of these people when they were still alive and when they were young, and then you can see me up there in 2010 when I'm old, like I am now. And it's wonderful to see these wonderful artists of our cultura reading their own stuff. Something to share. Those of you who have classrooms, you have teenagers in your life, get a chance to share it with them. I hope that you will. So I'm pleased to see it up here because that was the whole point of going out to UCR and taking those old-fashioned videotapes and turning them into a modern format so that all of our gente and our friends and relatives can enjoy it as well. So please, the USC Digital Library, Flor y Canto, you can find it, all right? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Gracias, Michael. Now, let's welcome our one of the main pioneers of why we are here tonight. We're about to screen the film, so it's been beautiful to get to know Laura this past year. Ever since I saw the announcements of the film screening happening in Oakland, and I said we had to make an LA appearance. So let's give a round of applause to Laura Varela.
Hi, everybody. I'm just really honored to be here. Thank you so much, Ivan. Wow. What a beautiful program. What a beautiful program you have put together. I am grateful for everybody who works here at Beyond Baroque because this work is so important. Your bookstore is important. Your history is important here. Michael Sedano's work is important. All the poets who are here, Josiah, Soledad, Mr. Rodriguez, Iris Tianda. Thank you so much. This is a project that really is kind of a labor of love. It started in 2006 when Raúl asked me if I would be interested in working on a project about his life. And he had been working on his archives. And I think he really wanted to work with somebody that could collaborate with him and the people that he was working with, like Dr. Ben Olguin, Dr. Luis Mendoza, Lilia Rosas, Alan Gomez. So, of course, what do you say? I said yes. Unfortunately, Raúl died in 2008, so we had a couple of years to develop the film. And yeah, we had a little bit of funding. I think it was a little radical for PBS, though, because when we really were trying to get PBS funding, there was a little bit of bottleneck there. However, I've never depended on any kind of system. Like, I'm from Texas, right? I'm an independent filmmaker, and we're not waiting for any institution to validate us. Our work is in service to the community, and so I'm very grateful for my colleague Anne Lewis, who is an editor, and Anne is amazing. She's a co-director here, and COVID happened, and we had time and creativity. And so we did the Act 1. This is supposed to be a 1-hour film, but we did Act 1 of his life, and that became this experimental film, Un Trip. So anyways, I'll let y'all take a look, and we can talk afterwards. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Texas is a white man's country. Had he come here with a bullet, he would have been shot.
Whose stuff was that?
We got that one. One of the other end. Shout out to Eric. Eric Oliver. Hope you all enjoyed that. If you need to take a break, feel free to step outside. Men's bathrooms upstairs, women's bathroom down the hall. Drinks, booze out on the patio. And we'll be there after the Flor y Canto as well. We'll see how much is left over. But we're going to have a brief Q&A, about 30 minutes or so, till 8 o'clock. And then we'll have a Flor y Canto Express. And I want to welcome our moderator, Ben Valdez-Holguin, who, apart from being instrumental to the filmmaking, he's also part of the Global Latinidades Center at UC Santa Barbara. And he is also an author, and his book is available in the bookstore. So let's give him a round of applause and welcome Laura Varela as well.
All right, everyone. Again, thank you all for being here. I want to I'm amazed. That's just an amazing film. I don't know where you found all that footage. I didn't know it existed. Amazing. We're going to get to you, but right now, I want to just acknowledge that one of Raúl's daughters is here.
Yes.
And it's really important that we also recognize what Raúl mentioned, all the pain involved in his life and the lives around everyone, or the lives of everyone around him. So we do want to acknowledge that. And,
Raúlrsalinas. I can't see her because of the lights.
yeah.
Maybe we can see her afterwards.
And, Raúl, if I may indulge a little bit and give an unorthodox discussion of Raúl's history. We've already got a really amazing document of our community's struggles and our hope and our vision and our resilience. But it comes from somewhere bad and sad, and it actually intersects with my family. My father actually was locked up with Raúl in Gatesville, in the juvie. And a tío was with him in Leavenworth. And a tía, Raúl, I'll just say this, Raúl almost became a tío, right? So, the courts girls that he mentions in this poem, that's my tía Defina. My dad was from the Buena Vista gang, and my barrio was Magnolia, and you just saw they appear right next to each other. It's a little oddity and irony, but it also models the pain that is multi-generational from coming from the worlds that we come from, the underclass realities that Raúl's work as an artist examines and theorizes and plots alternatives. But it's also that reality that leads us en masse into prisons and jails and all the traumas and all the replicating generations of trauma. So just want to recognize that this all comes from a lot of what we know. So he's our family too. It's really important to do that. I'm going to be brief because I do want to ask questions so that Laura gets to really illuminate her artistry, but also want to be brief to allow us all to engage, because this is, again, as I said, has now become a family experience, right? I want to stress one thing that really has come out from this film and from some of the interviews, the really unique interviews that y'all did, one of a kind. And especially from one of the voices you heard, it was by Luis Mendoza. He's a professor in Arizona right now. He's from a different barrio in Houston, Denver Harbor. We were enemies, technically, but became friends at the university. And he has written about Raúl's central trope, or central symbol that gets embedded with a lot of meaning, and that is the one of the trip, the journey. And it's important to recognize what Raúl models, and he models what I would say is one of the most important things for us to keep in mind in this retrospective, this reencuentro with our ancestors and their lessons, and that is the importance of autocrítica, the importance of meta-critique, critiquing ourselves and critiquing our analyses, critiquing our critiques, critiquing our alternatives, our models of alternatives, because, it takes a while to get it right, and maybe we never get it completely right because we've got to keep on thinking about it and reassessing and adapting. That's one of the lessons that Raúl teaches us from coming from a gangster world. And it wasn't just weed, he was a heroin addict, he was a tecato, and he dealt heroin, and as he alluded to in one of the clips, there's some deaths all around that space. Multi-directional, just put it out like that. Without pointing fingers, because this is all our family histories, or at least it certainly is mine, and I know a lot of people here as well. But he came from there. He became a cultural nationalist. When this poem was first published, it was in Aslan de Leavenworth, a cultural nationalist movimiento newspaper. Then he became a revolutionary nationalist. He hooked up with white revolutionaries, not just black and Leonard Peltier and Boricuas, but white revolutionaries also. And it's really important. He hooked up with queer revolutionaries. Jesse Johnson, a Maoist, a queer Chicano Maoist, was one of Raúl's most important interlocutors when he got out of prison. He confronted also his hypermasculinity in the poem Norma Jean that was published in the same book as Un Trip to the Mind Jail. And people don't recognize that. He was working on himself even then because he knew he had been cultivated within a hyper-masculine, a toxic masculinity. And it gets deep. And I won't throw all that out here because, people are still, studying the work and the model of someone who was on a lifelong journey of constant reassessment. And he became a Maoist, a communist. I remember, we would get high in the bookstore and we would sing the International. It was a small bookstore, but we had to run around there about 5 times to finish the song, right? And we were laughing all the time, but it was real. Raúl era comunista. And he became a Zapatista, and we forgave him because Zapatistas are buena gente, really good people, grounded. We learned many lessons from Zapatistas. And I'll end with this. He modeled all the many possibilities and all the trajectories in his funeral in Austin, Texas. He had given my stepson, who was Akwesasne Mohawk from Canada, he had given him the flag of the First Nations that, we were at the bookstore one time and my stepson saw it. He goes, hey, man, he's got that flag, man, the Canadian flag, man. It's like, that's me, and Raúl gave him the flag. And we waved that flag in an honor guard in his funeral. But we had the red hammer and sickle as well, which Alejandro Murguia raised, the internationalist, right? A story that we don't talk about too much is that Raúl was training to go to Nicaragua with Alejandro and Roberto, but he was called to help Leonard Peltier escape to Canada. El vato he was metido in a lot of things, right? Then we also had the Mexican flag, and the Zapatista flag was draped over his coffin. There's many worlds and many journeys. It really does encompass a lot of the trajectories here. So, all that to give some context, some personal context, some global context, to get back to this amazing document that you did. I really cannot, I didn't know this stuff existed. Some of this, it's just
There's
amazing.
so much more.
Well, let me get to that first question then. I almost don't want to ask it because I actually think it's a masterpiece, but is there going to be more, or what do you envision next?
Oh, man. The dream was, and the idea when originally discussed was a feature-length documentary for PBS. And as you can see, we were supported by Humanities Texas, NALAC, and ITVS, which is one of the funders of independent documentaries on PBS. However, we got it. We were able to do some development, those interviews, go through the archives, go to Stanford, and then unfortunately Raúl passed away. But when we started applying for production funding, it was just kind of once again that bottleneck. So yes, originally that was the idea. And now, with the situation of PBS at this point, I don't know if we'll be able to do that feature. Although I really do like this one, I do like this short. And I have, I'm a documentary filmmaker. However, I have started writing screenplays. And I do see this perhaps as a screenplay. If we were to go and go full in on his life, because that's the thing, is that it was so layered, and even a feature would not cover like everything. However, I feel like we'd be able to explore more of his life in the different layers, right? The personal, the political, the work that he did within these different movements, and how he contributed back to the community. Because the way I knew him is he was always a mentor. He was always there for young Chicanos. I went to school at UT. That was the place you would go to get your political education, Resistencia bookstore. And I filmed my very first film in film school there. It was these Chicana poets. And he gave us the space, and he gave them a place to perform, and it was just very lovely. And that was the beginning of my relationship with him, and which kind of led to
We're brother
we're
and
at
sister
now.
in that regard.
Yeah,
We're
absolutely.
estudiantes de Raúl. You gave a really good. You have a really amazing artist statement. I won't read it here, but I do want to ask you about how what you think about his artistic vision, how it intersects or diverges with yours, because your filmography, and I had the honor of very small consultant role with you on one of your films.
Oh, that's right.
It's an honor.
It's called As Long as I Remember.
Yeah,
That was a
and you
documentary.
dealt with military veterans, and and we all have families of soldados, right? I was going to become an infantry officer in another life, a different story, right? But the thing that draws my attention is you have Raúl and some of those soldados who are still scared the shit out of me to this day. Especially one of them, Michael Rodriguez. So it's like there's a wide ideological range in the subjects of your filmmakers. So how does that jive with, or how do you make sense of that?
It's just, it's all lived experience. I think a lot of my film work has been lived experience, right? That influences the stories. And one thing that I've always known is that our stories are not there, right? They're not in the mainstream. They're missing. We're invisible in history. And so, I've always tried to just do my part in terms of filling gaps, telling histories, making sure that people know who certain people are, if I can. The one I forgot about that you were part of the advisors.
Yeah.
On that film, as long
I
as
like
I
to be
remember.
invisible. That's important.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was awesome. My sister is here, and she can attest. We are children of the 70s. We grew up with at least 3 tios who went to Vietnam, and that's why that film, right? My dad was a veteran. My brother's a veteran, and so it's just something that I grew up with. But I knew for a fact that my cousins suffered a lot because their fathers went to Vietnam. Two of my cousins grew up without their father because he committed suicide after Vietnam. So for me, it was important to tell the stories of what really happens to our men and our families when they're dealing still with the trauma of war. So it was definitely not a pro-war film. It was very much told through kind of that perspective, and I think it's a very feminine perspective of where we see those ripple effects on the families and the children, and how important it is that these men deal with what happened, and these men were artists and they use their art to go
it's
through
amazing
Yeah.
film. So as long as I remember,
And then
yeah.
to Raúl, who was a revolutionary in Austin that we were all very blessed to even have access to. That he was somebody that, of course, that I think he had a lot of respect in the community, and we all just wanted to learn as much as we could from him.
Thank you. And on that note, we really do want to open things up because I know you have questions. So I have a lot of questions, but I need to disappear, which is a very important thing to do, to learn how to do. So questions. And thank you again. It's hard to see. There's one back there.
Thank you, Donna. This is wonderful. It's a question about how do we get this out there, everybody? And how do we, what can we do to build, to develop more films? So we used to have the Chicano Press Association, we had the National Teatros. Is there a place where Chicano and Chicano filmmakers, Latino filmmakers can come together, support each other? So my sobrina wants to make films, my nieta wants to make films, but it's a brutal business. And we need these stories, because if we don't tell them, nobody else will, or they tell them in the most racist way. So what can we do to support that effort to really build out this?
Thank you.
Oh yeah, through the cinema, and really support your effort and see other efforts like this grow.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, because right now this film is not being distributed yet. It's we were passed by a couple of educational distributors who I will not name. However, I mean, you know, it doesn't mean that the film is not worthy of distribution, because you know there are people who are very interested in Raúl and his life and his work, right? In terms of like a central hub for Chicano filmmakers, man, there really isn't much. There's people now that are coming together and creating work, but it is through the educational network, through the community, the cultural, you know, the cultural workers and the academics who help artists like myself. For example, like part of this program is sponsored by UC Santa Barbara, right, through your program. And I think that's really important, because Raúl always believed in using the institutions in a way to bring in artists. Like he used to get his friends gigs at UT, right? And then he would bring them into Resistencia. So I think that's important. We are actually talking to another distributor right now, trying to get it out into the educational market. However, I think what we're gonna just end up doing is self-distributing. And for me, I think it's more impactful to have a community event to show the film, talk about Raúl, and bring in the poets now. And
I would say
yeah.
the National Association of Chicano and Chicana Studies should adopt this.
Knox,
It should go
yes.
to every Chicano and Chicana Studies class. They're all good.
Absolutely.
At every single one.
I think I've been to Knox before. I think I'd have to apply to show the film there. And I'm not from a university, so it's different for artists, right? Like we have to pay for ourselves and we have to go. But I agree. I agree very strongly.
Yeah, you know, as we have some more questions, just want to add a little comment. This is the era of streaming, and I think the idea of Raúl's, that's a good 6-part series, you know. And there are Raza who are showrunners now. There was a gathering last month in LA with the ricos, ricas, you know, Galan and all those folks that got together. I don't know what's going to come of that, but these are multi-millionaire Raza artists, filmmakers, producers. So who knows? I am disappointed that, hopefully Good Docs was not one of the people that said no, but if they are, welcome, you know.
No, it wasn't them.
Okay, you know,
It wasn't good.
okay.
But even I'm not talking about Galan, but I mean, you know, Raúl didn't want to work with documentary filmmakers like that because he really wanted to have a say in the film. And at the time, now PBS is moving towards a model of participatory sort of like storytelling, where you make sure that your subjects and your participants have a say, that there's a lot of transparency, that you know that kind of storytelling, which is very much how community organizing already is, and how the filmmaking for like labor filmmakers like Ann Lewis, that's the model that we've always taken on already. So yeah. And I feel like that's why he wanted to work with me, right?
It's an honor,
because,
but it's a natural fit too.
Yes, he wanted to make sure that we were all able to collaborate.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
No, you honor Raúl and the many struggles that he's involved in. Question over there.
Yeah, it was a beautiful movie. Thank you so much. I was just curious, because obviously central to the movie is this idea of gentrification and everything else, and he obviously passed away, 2008, 2009? So it was kind of before East Austin really
you at all about, he featured, footage of now versus then and everything. Did you get a chance to talk at all about what was going on? Was it happening at that point? And
Yes, it was happening in the 90s and in the mid 2000s, the mid aughts. I don't know, the mid aughts. That's how you say it, right? The mid 2000s. He died in 2008, so it was very central to a lot of his work, East Austin and the changes that were happening, and the loss of housing and businesses, and a lot of cultural places, a lot of cultural traditions, and what can I say? I mean, it was a place where there was African Americans and Latino communities living together.
Yeah, that's not the case anymore. My family's from the projects in East Austin, Chalmers Courts. And yeah, that's like a hipster zone now. But on that point, I'm glad you raised that question. It actually extended, since my family's from Austin, half my family. So that was happening once the university took off. So it's really from the 70s onwards is when they started displacing us. They could have corralled us and then they displaced us very soon after. But that image that you found of that mural being destroyed is probably the most violent cinematic image I have ever seen.
Raúl Valdez.
Fuck, man, that's intense. And then there's that moment when there's a hole in the Indígena elder woman's face. That is, to me, everything in the film. And it's horrible to watch, and thank you for finding it and putting it where you did and doing what you did. Amazing. So it was a Valdez one then, right?
That's a Raúl Valdez mural, and he was a muralist. He is a muralist in Austin. His murals are all over the city, and his paintings and.
The Judith Baca of Austin, basically.
That's
for those of you who are in LA. Yeah, we're Tejanos. I'm a Tejano, Tejana. I don't want to hog. Is there more questions? We have room for one more question. Yes.
I want to hear like a good story because I knew Raúl too. I'm Elias Serna from Chicano Secret Service. We had a heyday in the 90s. We joined in every university once. And we were at UT Austin, and they sent, I believe Raúl picked us up, drove us to his bookstore, Red Salmon, and then went to the Salon Cafe. I was there at the time, and just like I know that in the poems, I think one of the Black Panthers, he knew him in jail. I don't know if others or something. Yeah. And then I don't know. I want to hear like the AIM stories too, because. But I'm wondering what's in the films that come, because he always had stories. And I just want to say for the record, he was really. We were cocky young Chicanos in the 90s, and we were. We were on TV twice. We were getting around all over the United States. And well, in his presence, we knew who he was, and we were very respectful to him. And he was very graceful with us and gave us like just beautiful consejos, like the uncle would, to the younger dudes. And I always remember that. And we always ran it every time we ran across him again. It was always like camaraderie and a lot of love. But I'm curious of that, of those stories from, I mean, you don't have to say anything that's going to incriminate us.
Everything's incriminating. That's a good thing. We're criminals. We found they're criminals, man. We revolutionized our criminality. But check this out. Read Raúlrsalinas' collection, Indio Trails, because he brings it together like the comrades right here do with the cricket hour, the revolutionary indigenismo. That's what the Zapatistas are doing. And that book talks about him in the middle of the war with AIM and with the Leavenworth Committee against the U.S. government, right? I mean, this is a serious book. And it's called Indio Trails, a Chicano Odyssey through Indian country. And he was at the ground floor of making a trenza of all the ideological strands and histories that we bear in our bodies in that book. So that's one of the stories that he'll tell you himself. But Laura?
We need a movie about the Chicano Secret Service. They were awesome.
Hey, I remember you guys, man. I love y'all's performances. I do remember. Well, I don't know if we could get into like Raúl's stories now, but I do think that it's really important that people know that he was, during the prison rights movement, he was one of the leaders of those movements. He was a writ writer, and he would do like the press and documentation. They wrote letters to the UN on the human rights violation in America's prisons. They were suing the warden in Marion Federal Penitentiary. That's why they released him to Seattle, right? Because they didn't want him there anymore.
Yeah, they would exile people. My dad got exiled from Austin too. You know, you mentioned Writ Writer. There is a film called Writ Writer about David Rees, another vato in the same platoon at Gatesville with my dad and Raúl. You know, they were all, you know, organic intellectuals from the barrio, and David Rees was the más pedido of all of them, who became really famous, and he sued the entire state of Texas. He had used his criminal mentality to turn it on itself, like Raúl says, tough tacos. Well, David Luis turned the system on itself, and for decades the state of Texas had its prison system under federal jurisdiction. It wasn't better, but it was less slave-like, you know, less slave-like. So it was, this is a very important part of Raúl's other history. You know, it's like a self-taught lawyer. And
the poets from the Bay Area who were from Nicaragua, who left the United States to go be part of the fighting there. Yes, I was going to say Roberto Vargas. And he put Alejandro Murguia, who wrote about it in Southern Front. Raúl was training with them in the cell that Roberto Vargas formed to train everybody. And they took off to the final offensive, but Raúl had a different mission. But yeah, there's all these stories. We're going to be sharing some in the poetry reading that's coming. There's several people going to be reading and sharing some testimonials about him and just about our struggles that are informed by some of the things that he was involved in. But thank you for opening it up in that way. You get the final word, any last thing? Wow. I just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you to my family. Shout out to them. Dr. Carmen Varela, Irene, Shorty, Carla, and Raúlrsalinas. Everybody else, the poets. Ben, I'm a Valdez too. Did you know that? That's my mother's last name. Obviously. Thank you to the poets who are about to perform.
All right. Gracias. Thank you, Beyond Baroque. Honor.
All right, guys. For those who you need to take a break, please do. But we're going to follow up with Flor y Canto, and we're actually first going to start with Ben, who is just here sitting with Laura. Thank you so much for moderating this discussion and for all the ideas and discussion that this sparked. We're in great company, so hope that y'all can stick around right after the readings to para seguir la fiesta, really. Yeah, just want to say that also one of Raúl's, the first muses that Raúl had were all musicians, and we're all black musicians. In the documentary, he mentions Ray Charles, and in the memoirs, he just goes on to list song after song that really moved him. So, in Flor y Canto, our tradition is really all about music. So we are going to hear that through La Palabra, but it's all, already within our blood. So, yeah, it's beautiful to, have that in our tradition. So, all the way from the Mexicas to now, and all the indigenous pueblos. So, let's give a round of applause again to Ben Holguin to start the Flor y Canto, and we'll go down the list.
Sorry to be more present than I try to be, but this is not my poetry. Really, it's the truth of the matter. This book, it's called "At the Risk of Seeming Ridiculous: Poems from Cuba Libre," was a compromiso, a deber that came from the Venceremos Brigade. I'm a member of the Venceremos Brigade. There's 10,000 of us that since the late 60s have been traveling to Cuba in support of the Cuban attempt at animating a socialist society, right? And there's all kinds of issues, and we get into all kinds of debates, but that's the mission, and it continues to this day. So I was told, okay, eres poeta, write a book about the brigade, publish it, and use the money to fund students to go to Cuba, and that's what we do. So there's 6 copies here. Whatever you pay doesn't go to me. This is not my book. I put my name on it, but these are stories of brigadistas. And Raúlrsalinas was a brigadista. He went to 2 contingents. Luis Mendoza went with him once or twice, and they said, okay, your turn, Ben, go. So I went 4 times, and now I recruit for the brigade, and we were doing that in Texas, and now that I've relocated to Califas, that's what we're doing here with the Southern California contingent. So you'll be hearing from us. LA always sends a lot of people. But this poem is about what I talked about earlier, about the autocritica, and sometimes the critica is not auto, the critica is named Raúl, right? Pinche Raúl, man, he was a tough teacher. So here's a Raúl story by popular request, okay? It's called Raúlrsalinas Presente. Presente. Hey, man, you stretched your thinning voice like an exhale mota. What you been doing, vato? Each time I wound back to Resistencia bookstore after 1, 2, 10 months away, I knew what was next. Revolution ain't no part-time gig, bro. The next joint, packed with Mother Earth's medicine, would make me mute as you broke it down, lesson after lesson, on the intellectual's responsibility to comunidad, the revolutionary potential of calor, and dialectical tensions between cultural nationalism and internationalism. And you called out my shit. This is what I miss most, Raúl. The alto sax smile of 70-year-old baby teeth and gray trenza wagging a Pachuco jailhouse jaunt as you laughed out loud each time I tried to explain, shit, vato, I thought I was doing pretty good. There was a lesson in this too. It ain't about doing good, ese. It's about getting better all the time. Ain't you been keeping up with your mouth? You passed me the critica with an exhale and smile, and another lesson rolled into a joke. Damn, vato, what kind of revolutionary are you? Then you closed the store for tacos al carbón y horchata from La Mexicana Taqueria 2 blocks away, reminding us that Caesar always said, an army marches on its stomach, and they got 2-for-1 taco sale today. This is what your critiques work at now. Food, alimentación, armas. Each return to Resistencia a homecoming. It was ceremony, a limpia ideológica with holy smoke. You watched over us all, like our ancestors did, whenever we needed to start over or take another step in this long march. But there would be no beer until I finished repainting part of the wall or sweeping the front of the store to give Renee a break. This too was a lesson. Revolutionaries work, ese. All kinds of work. It begins with something simple, you always said. A broom, hammer, or something sharp used to cut weeds. And don't forget to take out the trash from the bathroom. Pinche Raúl. But we would sit down again, flip through a speech from Che or a short section of the Red Book. We'd sometimes re-argue the merits of Lenin's position on the national question, on or Faneau's revolutionary critique of post-colonial intellectuals. That's how you told me about the Venceremos Brigade and the importance of Cuba and powwows and consolidating and complicating theories of revolution. It ain't all about theory, Vato, but the practical challenges of restoring our humanity. Today, I'm mute again, taking it all in, remembering your saludo and slow, deep exhale, followed by a lesson in the lifelong challenge you offered us all. Aquí te va, Vato. Take a hit and pass it on. Gracias.
Gracias, Vato. Next up, we have Maestro Abel Salas, who's here with us in the room. He's the editor of Brooklyn and Boyle, founding editor. So, all right.
It's really beautiful to see all these circles that begin in 1981 when I met Raúl at the first Resistencia in East Austin, and then later through Raúl met Luis Rodriguez, who was still in Chicago and had just published Poems Across the Pavement at the San Antonio Inter-American Book Fair. So I spent about 20 years as like the predilecto sidekick, and I've told Ben often that I'm sorry he got so many regañadas, because I got 3 maybe in those 20 years, but he was easy on me, I guess, because the Brown Berets said I was a loose cannon. They loved me and I was family, but nobody could work with me because I didn't listen and I didn't respect authority, and they were all too macho anyway. But my sister was partnered up and would soon be marrying the number 2, like the younger brother of the leader of the Austin Brown Beret chapter. So when Raúl took me under his wing, and we were doing, even before Taco Shop Poets, we were doing readings at La Esquina Lounge and Mario's Inca Maya in East Austin, like readings at restaurants and Mexican cantinas, and we'd usually invite somebody we knew who played accordion. So I was like, it was a continuing series of East Side poetic action. And so now I'm in the East Side of Los Angeles, and I want to read a poem that I wrote when the maestro passed. I'm going to have to change my glasses. But thank you, Yvonne. I want to give Beyond Baroque a shout out for bringing Laura and her amazing edgy cinematic experiment that I think won the audience award at Cine Las Americas in Austin. So that's like. And Laura I met when she got to UT to study film, and that I lived in El Paso when I was 2. Everybody says, you're a Tejano. I was like, well, by the time I was 4, I had already lived in Houston, El Paso, Yuma, Casa Grande, and Los Angeles. And my dad likes to say, you would tell everybody that you were going to your other house in Los Angeles and you cross the border with me, because we'd see Lucha Libre in Juarez, and I'd jump on his lap and stick my head out the window to tell the migra, I'm an American city. I'm an American city. I thought, it was like, well, cities are people. Cities are named for people, or cities are named for angels, and then people can be cities, I guess, right? This is Bill Roy. That's what they call him when he was young. I might have left my glasses on the chair. One second, just like 4 minutes, and then I'm going to finish with a brief piece he wrote that was published in the posthumous book that Dr. Luis Mendoza put together, just to show how savvy and connected and contemporary Raúl always was. It's like a note from South by Southwest, which is a big film and music conference. And this is it. Lil Roy, a.k.a. Tapón, a.k.a. Autumn Sun. Para el maestro Raúlrsalinas, que descanse en paz. You live on in every Gray hair, trenza, piedra de turquesa, silver hoop or bebop, hip hop, young MCs, Def Jam, poetry flow. You caught me falling, slipping so many years ago, and fed me tacos from Dos Hermanos and a steady diet of revolutionary literature to go. Long before Chiapas or Oaxaca or Juarez, you made us aware, taught us nonstop with first-hand witness chronicles like burnished stones from Pine Ridge and Big Mountain and Seattle, walks in the West Bank in Palestine, the Sierra de Guerrero, and even Managua with a red bandana and a broomstick. Then that box where we kept the press-on type for flyers on the fly. In the face of literary action in East Austin, cantinas like a wheel, with you as the hub and your adopted sons and daughters, the red salmon spawn, the spokes who radiated into the world with a vision gleaned at your side, at book fairs where you translated for Ernesto Cardenal, excommunicated for daring to expound a theology of liberation, and a lifelong love for Marilyn Monroe. In an epic poem, you delivered en inglés on a stage in San Anto because the Sandinista priest would have no other in your stead, while I looked on with pride and met a curbstone poet alongside El Chuco exile, who both wrote of bad boy histories and their need to live again in the steps of an ex-pinto poet, known on my hometown streets as Lil Roy or Tapon. You brought me along to so many tables and talks for a decade as a gung-ho Resistencia protege, painting walls at Jovitas and rooftop bookstore signs when the old guard brown berets grew exasperated and weary of a young loose cannon who didn't listen and thought he knew it all. You filled my soul with books and a blistering critique of left-wing politics that had no room for love or dancing, like a South Texas polka at Aslan Cafe, where another brother, an Emiliano Zapata playera, played pisadas on a Hohner accordion and reminisced over platos de carne guisada and botellas de Corona with lime. You were always there, y por eso me cuesta aceptar tu ausencia. And my heart grows out to Lila because I was her son too, adopted for a moment when you came home and knew you would live out your days. I wrote liner notes and fought to become the destiny you always foretold, a storyteller, cronista in the maw of a prison complex recovery, a struggle against injustice like the optimism you shared with a smile, the blue line and the jazz riffs spilling unchecked into every conversation or regañada you gave with love, like the Virgen tattooed on your chest and the caldito at Little Mexico and a South Austin bivouac. You were the unwilling general, a laconic alternative to the machista crew who sent me to you when no other school would do. Delivered me to internal rhyme and verse so sublime. You saved my life and didn't ask for a dime. I spoke up and let them all know. A firme vato, atole y con ganas, who led me to light when all I knew was rechazo and flight. Had ridden forth on a rainbow slide to Mictlán, born on Ejecot winds in a chill despedida, con truenos y gotas de una lluvia, como reconocimiento de la resurrección inevitable, the rebirth of poetry and song, the floricanto you gave when you selflessly shared the palabra final on the floor and into the sky, when mind jail trips were just an introduction to the philosophy that made us whole and helped us to ply the word slinger trade as an offering like an altar for el maestro who lives on in the fire, or amber like an ode to the warrior who enlightened us all. Thank you. It's fast forward to, because that was it. Mostly it being promoted from Red Salmon Spawn to Red Salmon Road Warrior meant I drove the little res truck and loaded the bed with books that we would sell in San Antonio or wherever and he'd say, I got to finish my coffee and treat my rheumatism. So he would sit in the passenger. He'd say, you drive, and he said, I'll drive us home. Get on I-35 and head an hour south to San Antonio or 2 hours east to Houston and hang out with Tony and the Nuestra Palabra. It's beautiful that the circles kind of all come back through the Chicanindio who had patience for me, and maybe I realize now after late night conversations over beers and good music with Dr. Ben Holguin about how, and I saw him be kind of hard on Dr. Luis Mendoza and even some of the people that I he goes, hey, well, good, bad, or indifferent, they can say what they say about me, about you out there, but it's you always come in a good way, and you always bring somebody to help. And it's like, yeah, I put all my friends to work because and I always volunteered to get on the rooftop and paint and do all the dangerous jobs that nobody, and he goes, if you fall down and break your leg, I'm gonna break your other leg. And then he laughed. I said, that's what my dad would say. He goes, this is South by Southwest, and I had to work for my badge because they one of those conference badges. The Austin Chronicle was started that big music conference, and Raúl just got a badge because he was a beloved elder, and everybody, he knew people from all walks of life, and I just had it. I'm not going to take the whole 10 minutes, I promise. But it's we got to find the 1980s, right? But the Resistencia that I knew was on 6th Street. Then we moved to South Austin, where BB's Cafe used to be, and that was the most dangerous rooftop I had to. But I had the turquoise and the burgundy. There's a longer piece here that it's called "Musings of a Mentee and Red Salmon Warrior," but I just want to show you that he was my first day. This is Raúl in 1998. It's how he stayed so current. He knew what was happening in every corner of the world with whatever struggle, and he had been to Libya on the request of Muammar Gaddafi. He had already been to the Gaza and written about it, and he had way back before then gone to Nicaragua, and people would call him, and then he'd put me on the phone with them. Put me on the phone with Walter Martinez, who started Venice Magazine, very glossy. And Walter was an Hondureño who was also like a poet that spoke to the world in epic ways. And so Raúl got on the phone. He said he needs he's looking for a young, like writer, entertainment, somebody, hip and cool. That's you, mijo. And so they each paid $100 for my Southwest flight to interview Allison Anders, that had just released that movie with Jacob Vargas and the little Suavecito truck. Okay, this is good. My first day at South by Southwest. Wow. After psyching myself out, I head for the prison-like, complete with gun towers, convention center to register and seek out friends from other places, other times, hoping to catch up with Dr. Loco, Chuy, and other members of the Rock and Jalapeno band from the Bay Area of Califas. Picked up plastic badge and now makes me an official South by Southwester, and headed back for the desk that issues the local goodie bag. Visited the trade show exhibit space, sort of a high-tech flea market, loaded up with all the free promo junk, which usually turns out to be mostly duds, and all the music rags and record merchants peddling their wares. Head back towards the lobby to do some serious schmoozing, as the new folks call it. Ran into Tony Price, second time this week, says she really wants to play at Jovitas, maybe in May. Around the corner, past several groups and clusters of dark, round glasses, black leather, and long hair, I meet Tony P. of Creative Loafing from Atlanta. He had done a piece on the East Side bookstore where he had visited and shopped at a previous South by Southwest night the year before. It was good seeing him. Talked about sending this article and my references to Trudel, to Ryko Disc, resulting in Resistencia, connecting with her, getting orders of John's music. And then she comes along, neat woman. We promised to stay in touch and go away, promoting Jovitas, dropping menus on every table in the place, and then the spoken word panel. All the so-called biggies were on it, and it was dull. The Slammers, who also made their appearance on the non-competitive scene. Good to see Liz Belil of Another Long Together Readings. Couldn't hack it, so I split to catch a few breaths. saw Abel outside with all the Mexican roqueros, Sergio and the Ansia boys stopping traffic in their best Tezcatli colors. Actually, Tezcatli punk colors, but that's Raul. And yeah, I'm a proud Red Salmon Spawn, and I miss him. And let's hear from some badass boys.
Gracias, Abel. And you could check out a review of Laura's film Broken on Boil, written by Alex Avila. So thank you for posting that today. So next up, we have the maestro, writer of Always Running, La Vida Loca, Gang Days in LA, and It Calls You Back, An Odyssey Through Love, Addiction, Revolution, and Healing, founder of Tia Chucha Press, Luis J. Rodriguez.
Muchas gracias. I think I want to express the stories of Raúl. I didn't know him into the 90s, but I met him when I was doing this urban peace work. You know, we were doing all these gang peace conferences in Kansas City, El Paso, Santa Cruz, Chicago, and I was working with Barrios Unidos at the time, and that's how I met Raúl. He would show up to the peace conference. We went to about 3 of them together. Now, the thing about Tapon was that he knew my work. My Always One had come out, and he had read The Concrete River and the poems Across the Pavement. So he was we just hang together. There wasn't that many poets in the work, even though we have experiences semejantes in that. I was also a heroin addict. I was also in and out of jails. And then when I left all that life, I went back to jails and prisons and juvenile halls like he was doing, like you see in the film, teaching. And I was teaching, I've been doing it for 44 years. So we had a lot to speak about. The other semejantic thing was that he came from a barrio, La Loma. My barrio was called Las Lomas. And we talked about how we came from these really poor neighborhoods that were just messed up and both gentrified, both gone. My neighborhood, I just took some people to East LA, and I call what's called a cholo tour, and I take them through East LA, and and they come from all over because I've taken people from Japan, from Brazil, from Italy, but also all over LA and all over the US, and they come on this tour. And I take them to my old neighborhood because they always ask, well, we want to know about your neighborhood, but I tell them, look, man, I go down there, I'm in mourning. It's gone, you know. The barrio has now got townhouses and McMansions. Used to be dirt roads, no street lamps, no sewage. It was our barrio, surrounded by well-off white neighborhoods. Just like in Texas, just like in Colorado, just like in Chicago, is Los Angeles. This is the way it was. Anyway, I had these similar experiences with Raúl, and then we would talk about our experiences because very few people had them, and so there we were. And the thing about him, he was much older than me. In 73, when he did that Flor Canto that they showed earlier, I was 18 years old. So it was like a whole different generation. But what he liked about my work, I think what he liked that connected with him was out of whatever we went through, whether it was the drogas, whether it was the jails, whatever it was, the poverty, we became poets. For him, that was important, and that was revolutionary. And that was important to kind of present to the world that in the midst of the darkness, in the midst of all this trauma, comes music, comes song, comes beautiful words. You know what I'm saying? That's what Raúl was really all about, and that's what he kept emphasizing. The other cosa semejante is that we started Tia Chucha's, me and my wife Trini, who's right here with me, 24 years ago. Yes, you got to give her. We started 24 years ago, but we didn't have too many models. Raúl had the model. You know, he had Resistencia Bookstore and he had Red Salmon Press. He had things that he was doing. And so that was another thing that was dear to us because when I met him, we hadn't started the Achuchas yet. But again, we're connecting in ways that allows us to be that way. I also want to say how important it was to know that he not only was indígena
A lot of Chicanos weren't necessarily into that, but Raul was definitely into that. I was also an AIM in the early 70s, and of course, he was very active, and I was very active in the Indígena community. But the other side of it is that we were comunistas, we were revolutionaries. This is our layered beings that we are, como Chicanos. People say we're one thing, we're not. Somos layered, man. Tenemos de todo, and it all sinks. You know what I'm saying? People say it doesn't sink. Of course it sinks. You can be a poet and a revolutionary and an ex-pinto and an ex-heroin addict, and you can be somebody that starts a center, and you can be all these amazing things because that's what we are. That's what Raúl proved. That's what he was about. So I want to share a couple poems that he liked a lot, because what we would do in our moments together there is that he would look over my poetry and say, I want you to know I love this poem. I love this poem. He loved certain poems, but he really, because not too many people wrote about it, he liked the poems that wrote about the heroin. And I don't really read them that often because it's one of those things, but we related to it. And so I'm going to read you a couple poems that he really loved about. One that he really loved, and then one that I wrote afterwards. Heroin was not our thing. It was brought to us. You understand what I'm saying? We didn't grow up to be heroin addicts. We didn't, it just, all of a sudden it appeared, especially in the 60s. Well, it actually was there before, but in the 60s it came all over. When people were starting to get together, uniting, the gangs were starting to work together, heroin came in and pretty much destroyed everything that we could be doing. And so he understood that, and we understood that. The reason we both got out of it and is because of politics. You can get out of, very hard to get out of heroin or fentanyl or anything else like that. But the people do talk about Jesus can get you out of it, or revolution. You know what I'm saying? And you pick it. It was revolution for me. You know what I'm saying? In other words, if you really have a vision for something, heroin, which is so hard to let go, it holds you, and it keeps you holding you even when you let it go. The point is, you can let it go if you have a powerful vision of a new world, of a new kind of society, and that you could put yourself in that world. And that's what will stop all the drug addicts. I'm convinced of it. I've seen it. And Raúl was testament to this. So I'm going to read you one poem that he really loved. He loved a lot of poems in my book, but this is one that he really loved. It's Tombstone Poets. And it was about one of my, Chiva partners when we would shoot up. Leaning against fractured tombstones, we wove poems, Micaela and me, grabbing strands from sunken lives, creating an alchemy of words interlaced with a needle-induced glow, sparking prose out of the poverty of unreason. Ragged memories push tongues into cheap chatter, recalling port wine, jail nights, the terror time between 2 a.m. and the first light of day without lovers. In the Tecata look in her smile, so distant even as she gazed into my eyes, here beneath an east side sun. Precious, 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 the noon hours at Evergreen Cemetery, paper lunch bags at her side. Even now I hear the humming from her soul. But heroin, took her home from me. Strings of words suspended in mist like broken webs, only protruding headstones remain. Mute witnesses to when life glowed afire, when Micaela and me wove tempestuous silk leaning on slabs of chipped stone. He loved those poems because he knew not too many people could write about it, and I didn't know if I could either. It's a hard subject, and it's hard to give it the grace that it needs because people want to put you down. Again, all addicts, this is not our thing. It was brought to us. It was pushed on us. It was part of the colonial, capitalist, oppressive world, and we have to understand that so we can give people the kind of grace they need so they can get through this. The kind of grace that allows people to not be put in jail for drugs, but to be given the help and treatment they need so they can live a full life. That's what the poem Raúl was about. So, and then I'm going to read you the other heroine poem. Again, it's hard to write about these things. I don't want to glamorize it. I don't want to demonize it. It's just the world that we're in. Almost 3 years ago, I lost a grandson, Joshua, to fentanyl. He was 22 years old. And so when you have that life and it comes and gets you, and it comes and gets you when you don't expect it. His sister, my granddaughter, Anastasia, was in prison at the time for crystal meth. And it's really sad when your generations keep moving it. And I'll tell you something else. Both Anastasia and Joshua weren't street hoods like me and my son Ramiro, who did 15 years. They were sheltered. You understand what I'm saying? They were our grandkids. We didn't want them in the world. Drugs came and got them. If you understand what I mean. There's no immunity. And I don't believe it's like Trump says it, people bringing it over the border. If the U.S. created that situation in Mexico, created it in Colombia, and allowed it to happen in our country. And I know because I was there in Central America when in the 80s when I saw it happening. And if people want to know that story, read it somewhere else. Because that's one thing that Raúl understood. I was in Nicaragua and in southern Honduras during the Contra War. And he knew what I knew about this stuff. So it bothers me that people are fighting drugs in the wrong way. It's not drugs, fight the system. So this poem is called The Peace of Death in Life. So maybe you can understand. Now, one of the things about black music, I want to think it's important because Raúl was very much into it. The reason why Chicanos love black music is, first of all, we live with black people. Our barrios were black and brown. At least I was. In Watts, I grew up in Watts, black and brown. I lived in the city of San Bernardino in the black and brown neighborhood. Pacoima, where my wife grew up, was black and brown. A lot of barrios were black and brown because we couldn't live anywhere else. We had restrictive covenants. They restricted where we lived. We lived with black people because that's where we could live. And so we listened to the music. And then, of course, they took a lot from us. The low-riding culture, the Pachuco culture. We took Pachucos from the Zoot Suiters in Harlem, but we made them our own. And then the low-riding cars was our thing, but you know what? The first car clubs, besides the Chicano car clubs, were black clubs. You know what I'm saying? So there was always an interaction. The other reason why black music was big in our communities is because, at least in L.A., black bands could not play in Hollywood. They were not allowed. Where would they play? On the east side. All the clubs on the east side, they were playing there. All the way up to San Gabriel Valley, El Monte Legion, all of them. That's why their audiences were Chicanos and Filipinos and others that can come together and appreciate the black music. Hope you understand what I'm talking about. So I'm going to read this, The Peace of Death in Life, for Raúl. He is an ancestor. He is my indigenous tío. We were in the same things, in the same struggles. Very few people can say that. And we were doing it even when we didn't know each other, you understand? And how important it is to keep that fight going. And if we do any justice to Raúlrsalinas, is to keep fighting for the world that he was fighting for, and keep pushing it, and keep making it happen, and bring more poetry into this world. The peace of death in life. I used to listen to Miles Davis. That's why I wanted to mention it. Miles Davis is one of the, especially Bitches Brew, when you're on heroin. You know what I'm saying? You have a soundtrack. Well, this is what this is. Heroin soundtrack. Bitches Brew. Trumpets like trains squealing around a bend. The way rainwater murmurs along a concrete river, skulls whispering you to sleep. Pain awash and glows from the tip of the toes through legs, streaming to the pit of his stomach, coloring the whole body in hazy blue wash. Miles knew the chords to blow. I chipped to soften the edge when things got bad. When it did, I didn't want to be around anymore. Stashed among my own eddy and score, loitering inside my own high, in my own morose pose. Yet Micaela and homie Sharky often joined even a high note or two, and strangers as raindrops fell. I recall the headstones at Evergreen Cemetery, where I leaned back to nod and scribble on torn pieces of papers, poems tracked with collapsed veins. I recall my small garage room with no running water or heat, and feeling the peace of death cover me as a white sheet in my clasp. The shadows felt so compelling. Even when I stopped breathing and homeboys forced me up, ice and pits and growing, milk injected to unsing the song. To quit, I had to accept never-ending ache. Numbness only meant demise. Now constant pain is constant reminder, a holy surrender. Life is pain. Pain is life. When the pain's gone, so am I. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Luis, former poet, LA Poet Laureate in the house. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Trini, for being here tonight. Our next poeta is hailing from all the way from the Bay Area. He is now bookstore owner of Medicina para Pesadillas, full-blooded Spanglish-speaking pocho. You can find his books at the bookstore. We have Baby Axolots and Old Pochos from Black Freighter Press, and Fuchi Faces de los Estados Jodidos, which was translated into Spanish by the Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León. Shout out to Minerva Reynosa. From San Pancho Califas, Josiah Luis Alderete.
In case you get lost during the reading, just look at this. Also, Lauda, the Bay Area has a PBS. It's the Pocho Broadcasting Service. So, they're responsible for such award-winning shows as A Late Show with Marisol, Speaking Axolot. So we would love to produce the film. So, let's talk. Yeah, man. I was tuned into the PBS radio hour this morning, and I actually heard them saying that the poor huddled masses deported the Department of War out of Chicago today for trying to smuggle American flag wrapped hot dogs onto the L line. And while that was going on, a missile from the disunited states blew a Venezuelan boat and its passengers out of international waters in an act the disunited states is calling manifest destiny self-defense. And while that was going on, whites of all shades of whiteness gathered in parking lots, churches, and sports stadiums to get together and collectively pray to try and convince God to change the identity of Charlie Kirk's killer to a black or brown man. Our sources say that since God is white, these prayers are being taken under very serious considerations. And in case you're still wondering, Flaco is still dead. The No Sabo kids still have ancestral bedhead. The North American concentration camps are currently very well fed. And every single one of you in here has got at least one primo that's going to be totally cool with wearing pinche willies, Oaxacan slip-ons, and a MAGA monolingual donated oxygen tank to time travel with, because it's like the Huezompantli blues out there. For those of you that don't know, the Huezompantli blues was a canción recorded by Chavela Vargas 4 years after she died. And it goes a little something like this. 40,000 skulls, each with a hole in the exact same spot where we either use the constellations as a crosswalk or sink into a horizon of oblivion. What I mean to say is 80,000 skulls, some with a few vertebrae still attached. Collectively, calaca whistling whenever el viento from el norte passes through them, making a cosmic cascabel racket that doesn't answer one single question about eternity. What I meant to say was 160,000 skulls. A calcium billboard of empire. A drive-in movie theater inside the Temple Mayor that plays Roman gladiator flicks dubbed in Nahuatl. Endless, eyeless eyes looking right through you to the place where you're going to end up. Grinning. Already there waiting for you. Grinning. You know, for those of you that don't know, and it's okay if you don't know, because I think that the whole point is us not knowing. Tlaxcali is a Nahuatl word to describe a round, warm, hella delicious masa type food item. I don't need to tell you what it is, you know. But see, the problem started when the conquistadors invaded with their diseases and tapas restaurants, and they got over to what is now the Valley of Mexico, and they looked down on the ground at our tata abuelas making their tlaxcalis, and the conquistadors said, tortilla! And here we are. Which is another way of saying that we are, in fact, much, much older than the mispronunciations the colonizers give us. Tlaxcali, Tlaxcali, Tlaxcali. Now, according to the White Western calendar, the first tortilla made it to outer space in the year 1985. The person credited with getting the tortilla into outer space in the year 1985 was a Mexican astronaut named Rudolfo Neri Veli. Yeah, fuck you, there's Mexican astronauts. You see, Veli requested to NASA that tortillas be included as part of the meal rations on the Space Shuttle Atlantis, which he was a crew member on at the time. And NASA thought about it for a minute and said, órale pues. Now, that first tortilla to make it into outer space, according to the White Western calendar in the year 1985, was not in fact a corn tortilla. Yeah, it was a flour tortilla, y'all. I know, there's a lot of fucking flour tortilla hate from the Mexicanos in here, but you want to know something? The sweetest memorias I have of mi querida mamá grande, of mi sagrada abuela, is her getting up every morning to make a big old pile of handmade flour tortillas, man, because she was from Reynosa, you know. And back then, my ma just moved us out of the mission into the whitest part of the Bay Area to open up a Mexican restaurant. So every morning, my mama grande would get up, make a big old pile of handmade flour tortillas, and then my mom would take them to the restaurant and serve them out to the white people. So I'd get up every morning, man, and I could hear the click-clack, click-clack, click-clack. Mi mama grande's rolling pin, flattening out the bolita of masa. And she'd keep click-clacking it till it get all flat, and then she'd take it off the cutting board and put it on the comal and flip it over and over again and start to brown and puff up, and then she'd take it off the comal and lay it on the counter, that long counter for the tortillas to cool off. And you know, by the end of the morning, that whole counter would be covered in soft, round, delicious flour tortillas, man. There was more tortillas on that counter than stars in the sky. Now, according to the white Western calendar, that first tortilla to make it to outer space in the year 1985 was made from a very special high-protein flour and contained enough preservatives so that it could last up to 18 months in orbit and was probably not handmade by an abuelita. My abuelita's hands, they was the color of wet wrinkled wood. She had painful arthritis, but she never complained about it. Not one time, not one of those mornings that she needed the manteca, the hot water, and the harina in that big old metal bowl. Now, I've heard it said by both the poets and the scientists that we are made of stars. Y'all heard that? Yeah, we're made of stars, man. And if we're made of stars, then that means mi Mama Grande's hands are made of stars, and by extension then, so are her handmade flour tortillas. I have no doubt that my Mama Grande's tortillas are up there in the night sky mixed in with the constellations. Shit. After the reading tonight, when you walk home, listen real close. You're going to hear the conejo en la luna munching on one of them right now. Los sullen southern stars, los sensonhuits nahuatin, they smear mantequilla onto her tortillas every night, dripping that butter onto the Milky Way and making it more yellow. And whenever los ETs are in this part of the galaxy, man, cruising low and slow in their mothership, they always stop, pop the hatch, and reach up into the darkness to pick some of Mima Grande's tortillas to take back home with them. Shit. The white Western calendar tries to tell us that the first tortilla didn't make it to outer space until the year 1985, but we know that our abuelas and their tlaxcalis have been above us in the sky, circling and protecting us way before 1985, man. The tlaxcalis have been up there way before 1985, man. Now, if we were sitting across from each other in some desert cantina or kneeling side by side in some roadside temple, right after the scratched jukebox canción ended, right after the acolyte lit the holy candelas, is when somebody in the room is going to start to say the prayer or sing the song about why they're looking for the snake woman. And apparently, La Luna still holds a grudge after all these years and tosses drunk conejos at the snake woman as she walks the length of the night sky. As the sun rises, her rostro wrinkles, her skin sheds. She is blue. She is orange. She will not be that hard to find. There's this jade casa where el viento from el norte sometimes sleeps. And I have seen the snake woman there from time to time, from dream to dream. If you happen to make it there and she ain't around, pues no te preocupes. She probably just went for a walk in the direction that Quetzalcoatl did when he said he was just going around the corner for some smokes. He'd be right back. Or maybe she got stuck in one of those apocalyptico traffic jams near the exit to the 7 cuevas. But whatever the reason, just be patient. Keep your eyes on the night sky, but ignore the constellations. Because what you're looking for is her reflection coming off la tierra as she slithers closer and closer. First you'll see blue, then you'll see orange, then you'll know it's her. Gracias, familia. Gracias, Beyond Baroque. And I want to say that it has been an honor, Laura, to be able to read for your film, which is such a beautiful and important creation for us. We were there last year, and gracias, hermana, for creating such a thing for us, because it matters so much. And maestro, gracias. And also, y'all, I'm so blessed to be able to read with one of my favorite poets, Soledad con Carne, tonight, and to be here with all of you. Aquí estamos, no los vamos, for real. And if you're ever in San Pancho, we got a bookstore on 24th Street. Ahí tiene su casa, 24th and Harrison, okay? Gracias.
Yeah, get your tacos de fideo. Tascales. Next up, we have the Wanaka Tapatia poet, author of Code Switch, Fires from Mi Corazón, and Roots of Redemption, You Have No Rights to Remain Silent with Flower Song Press. Give it up for Iris de Anda.
What a blessing to be here. I want to give it up for Raúlrsalinas. I'm going to tell you a little story. I'm from El Sereno, California, Northeast LA 90032 over there. And my godfather is here, Abel Salas. He read earlier tonight. And I was a baby poet in Santa Cruz in the late 90s. I was 19, baby. And I took 10 years off. I had a family. And then one day in El Sereno, there was a gallery. And they're like, oh, there's going to be a reading. Iris, you should meet Abel Salas. And Abel's like, we're going to honor my mentor, Raúlrsalinas. That's my first reading in 10 years. So that is my godfather. Thank you, Abel. I haven't stopped reading since. I guess that makes Raúl my great godfather. I don't know. But I'm so happy to be here tonight. I'm going to read like a couple pieces. Here we go. Que me quema tanto este ardor que llevo dentro, que me quema, que me quema tanto, tanto. Burn me at sunrise, ready to spit fire, speak of becoming. Native tongue, bruised tongue, el code switch comes so easy como aquí y there, weaving pieces of me, stitching genetic memory, tracing ancestral dreams, la lengua mestiza, silence cannot contain the flames. El flor y canto, quetzalcoatl breath, jade palabra, flowers and song filled with thorns, nopal blooming, nopal blooming. Jade corazón, weeping woman, lluvia words, lightning bolt, deep corazón, silence woman, bleeding hearts, tears of turquesa, words as medicine, sage for clarity and rage for transgressions, subversive tongue, idealist tongue, el dreamer drums our dance, pluma de locura, transcribing time, transcending tiempo, wild tongue, whispering tongue, blessed lips, ideas flows, sisters burn, speaking truths. This burning is for all of us, awake and full of desire. Sing nubes, smoke spirals, lucid ink spill onto air molecules. Frequency rises, turn up the volume. Aquí estamos, y no nos vamos. Que me quema tanto este ardor que llevo dentro. que me quema, quema, que me quema tanto, tanto. To be a pocha or not to be. Because I'm neither from here or there. I speak both languages with the flair. Born in Los Angeles with roots that extend, reaching out to faraway lands, faraway sands, far away from here. Because I am my father's daughter, drowning in alcohol, seeking the metaphysical, calling back in time my family line, a forgotten leaf on the familia's tree. To be a pocha or not to be. Because I'm my mother's daughter, drowning in depression, seeking a connection to a tierra I never knew, a forgotten trace of ancestors in me. To be a pocha or not to be. Because I'm not good enough for here or there. I love to hate my flag, and I hate to love my creation. Ashamed of Spanish in the first grade, I'm sorry, Mommy. I never meant to hurt you. Ashamed of English in Abuela's embrace, I know you never meant to hurt me. Because I'm merging culturas every time I breathe, crossing borders every time I speak, split forever into one at the edge of two worlds, at the edge of possibilities. To be a pocha or not to be. Because I'm finding a balance for this cosmic raza, a fusion of color for this mestiza, things to learn and things to teach the little ones in front of me. To be a pocha or not to be. I have a lot to say, but I have to be quiet because I'm gonna rage and be we'll probably end up burning the theater. But this is how I do it, right? Words are medicine, so glow up. Our skin sun-kissed at birth. Some keep reaching for el sol. Look under rocks and white hoods for answers their ancestors forgot to keep. Our abuelas tucked amulets into our braids, formed alliances with the trees, to carry messages through their roots to find us. Whispered Pachamama lullabies into our veins, made our mamas strong with traditions and cuentos. Our gente is pure gold, reflecting el sol. Place us anywhere in the world and we shine sunrise, working where no one else wants to, stretching fingertips into fields and factories of capitalism, placing one foot in front of the other, feeling blessed in this bruised world. Some of them mistake our brilliance for brutality, take our lives under the veil of democracy while spading racist fumes of self-hate. Our abuelos raised us with a steady hand. They placed dirt under our fingernails so we would always have soil to plant gardens, strum guitar strings into our hair to dance with the people around us, made our fathers soft with dreams and drive. Our gente are the minerals that reflect life, place us in cages, and we become songbirds of resilience, bringing light to dark histories, awakening the masses to the massacre of freedom, screaming soft cries in front of a wailing wall, feeling betrayed by El Norte. The North Star blinded the people, numbed the people, hurted the people. The sun woke up the people, healed the people, freed the people. Our nanas and tatas encoded stars and maps into our eyes to guide us through this dark stage in the United States of America. You can glow up whenever you want to. Thank you. I don't know, I feel so fake up here being like, thank you, you guys. Oh my God, look at this poetry. I'm gonna read one for Palestine. I might cry, and you should too. Planet Earth. I want to make things new again. I want to make things new again. Make them right. Make life become its worth before forgetting. I want to plan beyond a broken heart with this broken pen, because humanity failed us in our sleep and asked us to surrender. I want to sing love over these tears of pain when we forgot why we became who we are remembering. I want to light these words on fire in hopes that the ashes gained will be an ember. I want to wrap my arms around the children who lost their everything. I want to leave before the taking. I want to stay for those awakening. I want to draft a plan for love where war is not the staging. I want to sift through memories that lift our grace. I want to rage so loud the earth shakes us from complacency. I want to dance into fields of flowers waving white flags. I want to blade the truth from all the faking. I want to dress my abuela's braids with mass redemption. I want to ignite your wounds so you may bless it. And I want to tell this tale and be a witness for the next 7 generations. I want to make things new again. Make clouds rain. Make death become its truth before engaging. I want to understand this foreign tongue, this foreign land, this foreign everything. I want to know it is you and me. It is us dreaming. It is all of us, infinity in procession. I want to skip stones through the universe. Skip a step, cycles of regret, skipped sorrow. I want to laughter into every tomorrow, into every breath. I want to undo time so we never forget our first step. I want to break the bombs at your door with these words. I want to end this tragic trance of greed before we are all dead. I want to bend the will of God until this massacre erasing. I want to know. I want to throw the first stone at a genocide repeating. I want to burn the propaganda you're ingesting. I want to protect the innocent with kites over a promised land. I want to dream skies of peace in our hands. I want to raise the martyrs until they resurrect. And I want, and I wish, and I am. And I want to make things new again.
Gracias, hermana. And our last poet bringing us home is the intergalactic Chicanx poet, founder of Cucatlicue Collective. They are a poet of the root that cracks the concrete on occupied Fernandinho Tataviam land, otherwise known as the SFV, the 818, where we get radicalized. Their debut chapbook was released last year. Shout out to Lilac Press, to Angel Dominguez, to their homie co-editor. I'm forgetting their name, but Eric. Yeah, science. Thank you. But we got their debut chapbook in the bookstore, and that is SFV or Die Fu. So bring us home, Soledad. Round of applause.
It's kind of funny, like the one thing that people forget, Josiah gave me this. And every time he sees me, he gives me a new one. The one thing people forget to read from my bio is that it says punk poet. And that's important to me. No disrespect, but I think it needs to be said. Um, I am older than y'all probably assume that I am, but too young to have met Raul. But he is definitely a literary ancestor, for sure. He reminds me of just the men that in my family and in my life that have accepted me as the strange, non-conforming person that I am. And I always, when I look at his work, I just think of those men, and Josiah being one of them. So yeah, I'm just gonna get into it. Thank you, Beyond Baroque, Ivan, Laura for coming through, Arnaldo for putting my name out there. Yeah, for sure. Pochecki's Christ. 3 days after my crucifixion, I followed a limping man to Oakland after getting my heart broken in Los Angeles 147 times. Bart passes through Mictlan on the way to San Francisco, where the pochos grow palms and revolution in every sidewalk cracked on 24th and Mission. The neighborhood folks plant maíz in the pleats of the murals displaying La Pachuca Supreme, where Lorna D used to dream above Frida's left eye. 3 years after my crucifixion, the fifth seraphim, La Giggles, with wingtip eyeliner and rubber chola bracelets weaving through her wings, let me know, hey, like, it's time to go home. And turn Broadway and Columbus into the same bushfire Dios used to tell Moses to stop being such a pinche pendejo. Over the Greyhound speaker, Metatron announces, now approaching the land of serendipity, frijoles, and visions, of the surreal y chingon kind, tú sabes? And there's breaking news disruptions declaring the devil has invaded San Pancho. But I know that's a lie, because swear, I saw that fool when we drove through Baco. The bus drops me off on Parthenia and Van Nuys, where Trinity girls with bougainvillea flowers in their hair, surrounded by poppy flowers and prickled pears, still anoint murals of Tonantzin, with strawberry cheladas, roll on perfume. The full She Hangs Brightly album plays on the wind. They see me step off the bus with my Goodwill suitcase that looks like your abuela's living room sofa, replant the wilted bougainvillea on my scalp, hand me a Dos Equis, hug me and hold me, and welcome me home. The thing about like these literary elders and all that though is like, because I don't call myself a baby poet, I'm like a toddler poet at this point. But like, it's one of those things where like, yeah, I'm gonna be writing about my neighborhood and my culture and blah, 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 blah. And it's like you're writing in a room that's dimly lit, like it's spotlight right on you. But then when you flip on the main light, you realize you're in a room full of people that were all having that conversation before you were born. So like, that's just how I feel like Raul's in that room. You know, all these different elders were in that room before like I even came along. And like, I feel like our work just, it's a continuous conversation. Yeah, with that said, for the little brown kids that got called Dora because of their bowl cuts. Faded photos in Kukatlikwa's scrapbook of bangs cut short into an upside-down bowl, spilling a baby galaxy of thought, growing from the atoms of the first twinkle twinkle star. Snapshots of bare feet running over blacktop, through mud puddles, ring around, ring around, ring around, the dumpster divers, over to the Boleta man's creaking cart, to the bookmobile and back. Pages dedicated to baby's first day of school to prison pipeline, baby's first side-eye, baby's first wetback, baby's first truancy, baby's first hit, baby's first line, baby's first blackout, baby's first wrong place, wrong time, baby's first night in the joint, baby's first court-mandated AA, baby's still stumbling out of liquor stores anyways. But we stumble back into Ninja Turtle pajamas and morning cartoons, rolling down hills while swinging up to the moon, carrying potions and creating recipes for eternal youth. Where did time go? As we spin in circles, fall into a kneel and scrape knees on sidewalk murals. Wait for time to kiss your wounds, eat your tears, and assure you, you don't gotta know nothing. So one thing about me being, you call them Latinx test tube babies. I'm also in Sabo and all that. One thing, I don't care what the elders say. I love the X at the end of Latinx. I put at the end of everything. It's menudex. Instead of menudo, it's menudex. You know, all that. So for this one, it's tres Fridex in the bathtub after What the Water Gave Me by Frida Kahlo, Frida, Fridex. We're gender neutral. I am the cracked porcelain of the child's mind, a scar on what could have held the Pacific in her entirety. Salt comes from tears of the black and white Tetzcalipocas, arguing on shoulders frustrated by their own hunch. Panorama Tower protrudes through the water. The San Andreas fault line still clings to the base. A serape of bougainvillea draped around the rim. Lake Merritt filled with La Brea tar. Chunks of the five with hope shy float past Hollywood stars cracked in the center. Keller and Zuma Beach shift and interlace with the waves, visions of destiny and chance dressed as a bottle of mezcal and una paloma negra. Float and flutter above, playful in their fight. Follow each other's necklines with lips almost ready to forgive. Gaze into the water, see her reflection, reach in, try to hold her face just one more time again, only to end up with my arms wrapped around my legs. A red string of fate, still tangled in my hair, frayed at the ends, wrapped around my neck. The portrait of poppy flowers in her Wella's backyard that I planted in her image clogs the drain. This is my last poem. It's a little long, but yeah, it's one of those things about with Raúl, just the people in our communities, our family, and all that fall into what, like Luis was saying, just these aren't things that are part of us. It's things that get pushed into our communities, like with drugs, with like ending up like having jail time and all that, and that's just like a really bad summary of all that. But this poem's for my cousin, and I'm just gonna end there. For Miguel Angel Cano. Cousin, none of the tias want to pick up the phone when it's your mom or tia Mensa no more, because they three-way call ambush everyone and cackle like it's the 80s and they're still Bryant Street locas. Mensa's son, Agresivo Loco Mentiroso Jr., got dishonorably discharged from the Navy and no one will tell me why. You know I haven't talked to Agresivo since we were kids, and he stole the Quetzalcoatl thing you gave me after my dad left. And when I went crying to the tias, they all just said that we have to accept and forgive the men. I punched him in the spine instead. You and all the big cousins were laughing, but the women in our family realized I would never forgive their precious hijos just like that. Mom and tias haven't kissed me goodnight since then. Socorro moved back in with his mom, kept his name but hides his tea, leaves his things packed by the doorway, barely speaks. So his mom cries to his estranged sisters that he's so cruel like their fathers, and his sisters still hate him for not getting pregnant and marrying the first pendejo to ask like them. So they agree that he's so cruel like their fathers. We still don't know how to explain that we learn cruelty in the womb that resents us. Inez from over on Kester is still a walking catalyst. All the chapters in her Bible are named after the men who hate her for telling them that the sky can be whatever shade of blue you want, but if you don't consider the brown of the dirt in front of you, you'll keep stepping in dog shit. You know San Fernando Valley parking lots and alleyways raised us wild. Cousin, I moved back to the neighborhood too, and every day I sit on that stoop from my dream where we last saw each other. I couldn't tell you what happened to the two little girls in the pink stroller. Sorry, my phone stopped scrolling. And that fucked everything up. Let's see. It glitched for a second. I couldn't tell you what happened to the two little girls in the pink stroller, or that those white hipsters in San Francisco didn't turn the chip on my shoulder into a throbbing wound. Cousin, I went to visit Andesol Avenue the other day too. She's been heartbroken for the last decade. The leftover pieces of your skateboard are an altar at the end of the block. The taggers and skaters in Vato Loco still lay marigolds and cellas at the base and pray for protection over their strange behavior. The cracks in Andesol's concrete heart have grown into caverns no skater can ollie over. She told me she's just trying to save the neighborhood from feeling 7 more exit wounds. Jackie Lacey spit in your mom's face laughing for carrying around your ashes everywhere she went after that. And the pig was promoted to another precinct where her emails leaked about targeting houseless folks in Canoga Park for being too vulnerable in public. Cousin, have you met Toby yet? Or Jerry? Or PETA? Cousin, when I find a type of tree or flower or bird I don't know the name of, I just name it Michael, so it becomes familiar and a part of you. And some white man probably gave it some bullshit name anyway, so like whatever, you know? Cousin, the Holy Choir of Trinity Girls sings and opens a portal at the beginning, which is also just Union Station, and straight into Point Richmond, which could be the end of the world if you forget that there's still so much California left to go. The fork-tongued gato negro is waiting for me to flip the record and help him pop his experimental pills. There are no flies on my ceiling, cousin, but I can hear their bullshit chismeando just outside my window, talking about how all I'm doing these days is flipping the record, expecting another sound to come out. Thank you.
Round of applause to all our poetas. And yeah, thank you. The future is hoy. It's now, and without our Chicanx dinosaurios, we wouldn't be here. But we pay our respects. So once again, Raúlrsalinas presente, presente. Yeah. And to Laura, to Ben, Josiah, Sol, Abel, thank you all. Michael, really. Iris, yes, thank you all. We are closing at 10 p.m., so we still got a good time to hang out. There is books in the bookstore, drinks outside in the patio, but our poetas, let's take a group photo. And thank you all for being here.
Thanks for. Do you want to eat this, man? That is. Everybody's got grandma here. It's like I can tolerate
Thank you. Do they root? I mean, she moved me. I can't get them anywhere. Like they gotta be.
Never.
Yeah. There's a whole.
Because they don't use the big manteca anymore. Big white.
Yeah.
La Palma still makes almond-based tortillas.
Are they good?
Yeah. See, all that stuff is good, but it's not that. I don't know what kind of tortilla man you are. I just like that attitude. I like that attitude that you don't be man.
We're going to Cuba.
That's badass. Next week. That's serious. You won't be able to tell from your already.
No, I heard it in your what you were saying, and I was like, oh God,
That's the camera, everybody.
Okay.
I should have brought my beer. No, bring it up here.
You got it. Oh, I did? Oh, we all good.
Can we have a bite? My circle. Let's get back.
Always. I'm not primera vez.
You come right here. I got your cartoons out of my face. So that's cool, brother. That's cool.
You want? Wait, should I?
Maybe you should go.
No, I'll stand taller, okay? Watch out. Ready?
There you go. There's a
Low
riders. East of the freeway.
Look at that beautiful sight. That's a photograph right there. 3, 2, 1.
Raúlrsalinas. Yeah, Raúlrsalinas had his fist in the air.
Over here. Look over here.
Con sapos por vida.
Con sapos.
Thanks for bringing everybody together, man. That's beautiful. I have hand-drawn to resemble bullet holes. Then you sign an order when it's time for Chiapas. And then you have like a website where you can you can draw it as well. On the movement. You'll holler at me, a big grant right now. I've forgotten it. It says